You didn't lose her. You lost the illusion that she'd make your pain sacred. We were taught that love is loyalty, that passion means permanence. But what if that's the biggest lie men have ever swallowed? She didn't deceive you. Nature did, wrapped in perfume and soft eyes. Schopenhauer saw it first, that what men call romance is often just biology with good lighting. That the woman who says forever may only mean until I evolve. And most men aren't betrayed by women. They're betrayed by what they needed her to be. This isn't a story about hate. It's a story about function, about the hard truth no one teaches boys, that what feels like betrayal is often just selection, adaptation, nature's math. But this isn't where you collapse. This is where you see through the veil, because once you stop mistaking survival for love, you stop kneeling to the version of you that needed her approval to exist. She fulfilled her nature, now it's your turn. He thought her attention meant ownership. She smiled, she stayed, she whispered forever, but her soul never unpacked. What he called love was a moment of anesthesia for a wound she didn't name. And he wasn't chosen. He was convenient, like alcohol on a sleepless night. She didn't belong to him. She borrowed him from her chaos. Her pain recognized his. That's why it felt magical, not because it was sacred, but because it was mirrored. She saw in him the same fracture she was trying to avoid in herself. Not a partner, a reflection, a matching ruin. And ruins feel like home when you're tired of pretending. He didn't protect her. He bled beside her, not out of strength, but out of a silent hope that bleeding together meant healing. But she wasn't healing. She was hiding. And he was her hiding place until he started showing her mirrors she couldn't ignore. That's when she began to pull away, not because he failed, but because he revealed. She never loved him. She loved the way she disappeared beside him. Her laughter was relief, not intimacy. Her kisses were pauses, not promises. He became her escape from herself until his need made her remember who she was. And remembering herself meant losing him. He thought she wanted him, but she wanted silence. The silence of not being judged. The silence of being seen, but not known. He gave her that until he wanted more. And the moment he asked for love, she remembered her exit. Because love, real love, would have made her responsible for her reflection. This wasn't betrayal. It was function. She did what she always did, find warmth, use it, leave before it cools. And he did what most men do, confuse presence with permanence. He mistook temporary intensity for eternal belonging. He forgot that pain can feel like connection when you're both drowning. He wasn't a villain, just a man who hoped too hard, a man who thought loyalty could earn affection. He gave and gave, thinking she was an investment, but she was a season, not a strategy, and seasons don't apologize when they end. It's not that she used him, it's that he let himself be used to feel useful. And in doing so, he abandoned the one thing that might have saved him, his own mirror. He stared at her to feel whole, never realizing he was becoming hollow, not heartbroken. Hollowed out by a love that was never real. Now he thinks she broke him. But what if she simply revealed how broken he already was? What if she wasn't the storm, just the wind that knocked down the mask? He thought she was his woman. She was just the proof that he'd never truly been his own man. He believed peace was the prize. He tamed his fire, softened his voice, rebuilt the world just to be her shelter. But the moment he became calm, she vanished. Not out of malice, but because she never came for peace. She came for the chaos that made her feel alive. She wasn't chasing love. She was chasing proof. Proof that she mattered, that she could disrupt something solid. When he was wild, she felt important. When he became predictable, she felt invisible. And a woman addicted to crisis doesn't know what to do with safety. He mistook her stillness for satisfaction. But in her mind, stillness was abandonment. She needed turbulence to feel seen, not stability. She didn't want the version of him that healed. She wanted the version that bled loud enough to echo her own noise. Every time he chose clarity over drama, she grew distant. He thought he was becoming a better man. She thought he was becoming boring. Because some women don't love you. They love the confusion you create. And when that confusion ends, so does their desire. She said, "You're everything I ever wanted." But what she meant was, "You're everything I thought would fix me." And when she realized peace didn't make her whole, she blamed him for the silence. She left not because he failed, but because he stopped failing loud enough to distract her. And she mistook that quiet for emptiness. He called it growth, she called it a cage. And in her restlessness, she craved the fire that used to threaten her, because some people only feel love when they're fighting not to lose it. He gave her certainty. She missed the fear of loss. What he thought was loyalty, she felt as stagnation. What he built as a home, she saw as a trap. He gave her security, and she used it as a springboard. She wasn't looking for a man to build with, she was looking for a story to survive, then leave. In the end, it wasn't him she left, it was the mirror of her own restlessness. And because he reflected none of the war she felt inside, he became irrelevant, not hated, not wrong, just done. She didn't leave when he hurt her, she left when he stopped. He thought love was linear, that once she chose him, she'd remain. But nature doesn't operate by promises. It obeys rhythm. She didn't lie, she changed. And change to a man clinging to permanence feels like betrayal. He blamed her for becoming someone else, but she didn't switch masks. He just stopped mistaking them for skin. What he called deception was really revelation. She was always in motion. He just wasn't ready to see it. Her affection expired the moment its purpose did. In the beginning, she needed him to feel reborn, so her words were sacred, her eyes were soft, her body like a vow. But seasons don't apologize for turning cold. And once spring served its function, summer took over, wild, hungry, restless. She didn't change, the phase did. He remembered the softness. She remembered the need that made her soft. And when that need disappeared, so did the version of her he adored. He stayed constant. She followed nature, and nature does not mourn its past forms. She loved him, truly, but only within the frame that fit her hunger. He mistook her passion for eternal design, but it was seasonal necessity disguised as destiny. She didn't betray him. She just outgrew the identity that once needed him. Men build altars, women build nests, and abandon them when the wind shifts. This isn't cruelty, it's instinct. She didn't want to hurt him, she just wanted to remain alive in herself. And he became part of a story she no longer needed to tell. He wanted devotion. She offered cycles. She gave him everything until everything became a weight. And when he asked her to be who she was yesterday, she felt erased. So she left not because she stopped loving, but because he stopped evolving. The wound wasn't her departure. It was his belief that she ever belonged to him, that something so fluid could be held like stone. He wanted a forever she was never built to carry. And that's not betrayal, that's misunderstanding function. He thought being her solution would make him irreplaceable. He solved, he supported, he held the weight she never spoke aloud. But what he didn't see was this. She wasn't bonding through love. She was attaching through need. And when that need dissolved, so did her reason to stay. She never asked for his soul, just his service. She didn't want a man. She wanted relief. And once her fire cooled, he became background noise. Not because he failed, but because the crisis he solved no longer existed. She didn't fall out of love, she outgrew the problem that required him. He built a temple of devotion, thinking it would earn permanence. But to her, it was a hospital, temporary shelter until the fever broke. And when she stood on her own feet again, she looked at him, not as a partner, but as a reminder of the weakness she'd overcome. She had no use for the mirror once the makeup set. He mistook utility for intimacy. That if he stayed up at 3 a.m. wiping tears, he'd earn her 3 p.m. affection. But affection that depends on brokenness isn't love, it's a transaction. He gave thinking it was sacred. She received thinking it was service. She didn't kiss his mouth. She thanked it. Every "I love you" was really, "You're helping me survive this." And the moment survival wasn't her main story, his presence felt unnecessary. Not ugly, not resented, just obsolete. He became the charger she unplugged once the battery was full. He created a value system around being needed, not knowing that once he fulfilled her need, he erased his own value. And that's the trap. When love becomes performance, usefulness becomes prison. He couldn't rest, he couldn't stop, because rest would mean risking her disinterest. He wasn't her partner, he was her pause, a breathing space, a rescue raft, a quiet between storms. But when life became calm, so did her hunger for him. And a man who lives to be needed will always fear peace, because peace reveals who was never really wanted. This wasn't cruelty, it was misalignment. She never loved the man, she loved the function. And when he became more than that, he became unfamiliar. The truth? She didn't leave when he stopped helping. She left when he stopped being her crisis. He thought it was fate. The way she stared, the way she laughed like it meant something eternal. But what he called soul recognition was just emotional alignment in a specific season. She didn't see forever, she saw now, and he mistook urgency for depth. She wasn't lying when she said it felt real. It did, for the version of her that existed then. But people evolve, especially when they're in pain. And once she began to heal, the parts of him that once comforted her began to irritate her. Not because he changed, but because she did. She didn't plan to leave. She didn't plan anything. He was her moment of escape from who she'd been. A mirror that let her pretend she was already transformed. And when the pretending ended, so did her presence. He thought they were building something, but she was using him to forget the last collapse. He believed her fire meant destiny, but some fires are just flares, signals of distress, not warmth. And once rescued, she no longer needed the flame. She didn't owe him forever. He just believed she did because of how intense it felt. But intensity isn't a contract, it's a spark. And sparks burn fast, especially when they come from two people trying to forget who they were. He wanted to stay in the story. She wanted to finish the chapter. He thought love meant building. She thought love meant movement. And she moved, not away from him, but toward a version of herself that didn't need him anymore. He wasn't a mistake. He was a necessary experience, a symbolic exit ramp from a life she could no longer stand. But exits aren't destinations. He was never her home. He was her way out. Some love stories end in betrayal, but others end in evolution. And those are harder because no one is wrong. They simply grow in different directions. He stayed. She shifted. And love, once sacred, became a souvenir. She called him perfect, safe, rare, the one, and he believed her, not knowing those words were the beginning of the end. Because when a woman starts describing you like a finished story, she's already writing the epilogue. She didn't lie. She loved the version of him that didn't threaten her illusions, the man who always said yes, who never challenged, who smiled instead of roared. And she praised him for his gentleness, while quietly mourning her own desire. He wasn't her man, he was her monument. He thought the compliments meant he was winning. But she was grieving, slowly, quietly, with soft smiles and dead eyes. Every kind word was a layer of distance. She was preparing his departure with velvet language, because some farewells don't come with silence, they come with overpraise. She didn't betray him with another man, she betrayed him with indifference. He was loved, like a childhood book, familiar, harmless, finished. She didn't want to touch him. She wanted to remember him. And memory isn't passion, it's preservation. He noticed the withdrawal, the way her body responded slower, the way her gaze passed through him like fog. But every time he asked, she said, "You're everything I ever wanted." And that was the scariest part. She meant it. Because everything I ever wanted was code for everything I no longer need. He fulfilled her fantasy. Now she wanted friction, tension, fire. And he had none left, because he'd softened everything sharp to make her stay. Now she was leaving, because he was too soft to make her feel. He thought safety was what she craved, but safety without polarity is sedation. She wasn't bored of him, she was numb beside him. And when a woman goes numb, she leaves emotionally first. Her compliments were lullabies before departure. He didn't lose her, he faded beside her. Because in trying to be the man she admired, he stopped being the man she desired. She didn't cheat. She outgrew the man who stopped making her feel. Did you enjoy the content and it made a difference for you? Click on Super Thanks and support our work. He edited himself to stay in the story, softened the edge, quieted the truth, bit his tongue so she wouldn't bite hers. He called it love, but really it was negotiation, trading authenticity for approval. And every time he bent, she disappeared a little more. She didn't fall for him. She fell for the version he performed. The agreeable man, the emotionally available saint, the calm eye in her storm. But masks are heavy, and eventually, even he forgot who was underneath. He thought vulnerability would earn devotion, but what she admired was the illusion, not the man. And when the mask cracked, she didn't lean in. She recoiled, not because of who he was, but because she'd never chosen him to begin with. She chose who he pretended to be. He didn't lie with his words, he lied with his silence. Every time he ignored the red flags, he said, "You matter more than my standards." And every time he tolerated disrespect, he whispered, "I fear being alone more than being unloved." That's not romance, that's self-erasure. She didn't break his heart, she broke his performance, because when he finally showed the raw, flawed, honest version, she saw someone she didn't recognize, not because he changed, but because the fantasy expired. He stayed agreeable to keep her affection, not realizing affection earned through compromise is always conditional. And when he asked for something real, something mutual, she vanished, not as punishment, but as confirmation. The man she loved had never existed. He betrayed himself long before she did. He smiled when he should have walked. He stayed when he should have said goodbye. And she didn't need to deceive him. He was already pretending that being everything she needed would make her stay. But no woman respects a man who abandons himself for her. The tragedy isn't her leaving. It's what he became, to delay it. He didn't lose her. He lost the fight to remain real in a love built on illusion. And illusions, no matter how beautiful, always ask for one thing: your extinction. He thought the grief meant she was the one, that the weight in his chest proved it was real. But heartbreak isn't always the loss of love. Sometimes it's the collapse of illusion. He didn't lose a soulmate. He lost the version of himself that needed her to feel whole. He wasn't mourning her. He was detoxing, from need, from fantasy, from the addiction to being chosen. What he called pain was his system rebooting without permission. And pain, when it's honest, is the sound of chains breaking. He kept asking, why did she leave? But the real question was, why did I abandon myself to keep her? Every tear wasn't for her absence. It was for his own. The self he exiled to be lovable. The soul he muted to avoid being alone. Grief became his classroom. It stripped him, starved him, brought him to the mirror. And in that mirror he didn't see her. He saw the boy who gave away his power, thinking it would buy him love. He didn't need a girlfriend. He needed resurrection. He thought the worst was the goodbye. But the real devastation came after, when silence exposed the lies he told himself, that love meant sacrifice, that staying meant strength, that being enough meant being small. He wasn't heartbroken, he was waking up. And waking up hurts when the dream was beautiful. He looked at old photos, read old messages, played the movie in his mind. But every scene felt staged, not because she was fake, but because he wasn't present. He was performing. He didn't remember joy. He remembered survival with a smile. The weight in his chest wasn't love, it was withdrawal. From validation, from illusion, from the story he'd clung to. And slowly, he realized the pain didn't start when she left. It started the moment he stopped being himself. He didn't fall apart when she disappeared. He fell apart when he returned to the parts he'd exiled, the truths he'd buried, the self he'd forgotten. She wasn't the wound. She was the mirror that shattered, revealing the man behind the mask. He kept asking why she left, why she changed, why she couldn't love the way he did. But the answer was never personal. It was biological, psychological, symbolic. She obeyed her nature. He tried to rewrite it. She was not cruel. She was cyclic. Not faithless, adaptive. Not dishonest, intuitive to her emotional survival. She did what nature designed: select, attach, extract, evolve. And he mistook instinct for intention. Jung said the woman within us, if unconscious, rules us through projection. That's what happened. He didn't love her. He loved the image he built to soothe his inner void. And when she stopped fitting that image, the whole illusion collapsed. Schopenhauer warned of this. That romantic love is not divine. It's functional, the will to life masquerading as poetry. She didn't fail him. She completed the function her instincts required. Now it's his turn, not to retaliate, not to harden into cynicism, but to fulfill his nature, the deeper one, the one that creates, not chases, the one that leads, not pleads, the one that sees clearly and loves without becoming blind. He doesn't need to become invulnerable. He needs to become indivisible. Because when a man integrates his anima, he stops needing the woman to carry his soul. He reclaims it. And from that silence, a different kind of strength is born. This isn't a call to hate. It's a call to see, to understand that the pain she caused was never cruelty. It was the consequence of a man asleep to his own psyche. She moved on. Now move into the dark room where your real self is still waiting. Forge yourself in silence, not for her gaze, but for the man who looks back at you when no one else is watching. She fulfilled her nature. Now fulfill yours, without apology, without illusion, without delay. What if it was never about her? What if everything you tried to protect in her was really something you abandoned in yourself? She didn't break you. She exposed the fracture. And now you can either glue it back with illusion or rebuild with truth alone, in silence, like a man reborn from ash. Don't chase closure. Create direction. Don't wait for an apology. Write a new myth. The question isn't why did she leave? The question is, why did I need her to stay in order to feel whole? If this spoke to the part of you that no one else sees, subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications and continue this brutal journey of self-reclamation and emotional sovereignty. Before you move on, ask yourself this. If she fulfilled her nature, did you ever understand it? In the next video, we descend deeper into Schopenhauer's most brutal truth. Not that she left, but that she never loved the way you thought she did.